In 2013, Brady was full of life. A 22-year-old nursing student, she had big dreams. She was studying hard, working part-time to support herself, and had just landed an internship at Augusta Regional Hospital. Her friends often described her as vibrant, fearless, and full of laughter. But the truth behind her smile was darker than anyone wanted to admit, because behind that smile lived a growing fear, a fear with a name, Marcus J. Wallace. On the morning of March 1st, 2013, the quiet air of Augusta, Georgia, was pierced by a frantic 911 call. A neighbor reported shouting from the next apartment, followed by silence. Officers rushed to the scene. What they found would haunt them for years. Lon was found by the front door of her modest apartment, motionless, a gunshot wound to her chest. Her body slumped as though she was trying to run. Her eyes were open, wide, frozen in terror. Furniture was overturned, her phone was shattered. The apartment told a silent story of a final struggle. But what caught investigators off guard was the lack of forced entry. The door wasn't broken, nothing was pried open. Whoever came in had a key. Standing outside the building, dressed in uniform, was Marcus Wallace, her boyfriend, a respected deputy in the local sheriff's department. Calm, composed, almost too calm. He told police he came to check on her after they'd had a fight the night before. He said he left to cool off and couldn't reach her this morning, but detectives immediately felt something was off. His tone wasn't concerned, it was mechanical, polished, as if he was already rehearsing a story. What the officers didn't know yet was that this wasn't the first time Lan had been afraid. In the weeks leading up to her death, Lan had confided in a close friend and a professor. She'd said Marcus was controlling, manipulative, and sometimes violent. She mentioned that she wanted to end things but was scared of what he might do. He said he'd kill me if I left, she once said to her friend Maya. And I think he means it. She even called a domestic violence hotline, but hung up before making a report. She wanted out, but she didn't think the system would protect her, because the man who hurt her was the system. Friends had noticed bruises. Her co-workers at the diner whispered about her coming in with sunglasses indoors. Neighbors mentioned shouting matches late at night. Some had even seen Marcus shouting at her in the parking lot, but no one reported anything. Maybe they didn't want to interfere. Maybe they thought it wasn't their place. Maybe they assumed he was a cop. Surely he couldn't be that dangerous. Lan herself seemed torn. She told her best friend just 3 nights before her death that she was finally ready to walk away. "I'm done," she had said. "I can't take the fear anymore. I'm leaving him for good." That was the final message Maya received from her. If you are still with us, don't forget to hit like and subscribe button. Later that same night, neighbors heard a man's voice yelling, "You think you can leave me?" followed by the sound of something breaking, then silence. As investigators began their work, they obtained Lan's phone records. What they found chilled them. Hours before her death, she had sent a message to a friend that read, "If anything happens to me, it was Marcus." That one text changed everything. Police then looked into Wallace's service weapon, a Glock 22, standard issue for the sheriff's department. The bullet that had killed Lan matched a round from that exact firearm, and not just a similar gun, his gun. Ballistics confirmed it had been fired by Marcus Wallace in a recent training session. The match was clear. A journal was discovered inside Lan's bedroom drawer. In it, she had written about her fear. One entry read, "He told me I'd never leave alive. He watches me sleep. I think he wants to hurt me." And still, Marcus hadn't yet been arrested. Because of protocols, because he was one of them. But whispers started fast. Why hadn't anyone listened to Lan sooner? Why was her fear dismissed as drama? Why had she been left unprotected when she needed protection the most? Public outrage grew quickly. People demanded answers. Domestic violence advocates came forward and condemned the hesitation to act when victims report abuse by law enforcement officials. And soon enough, the pressure became unbearable. On March 5th, just 4 days after her death, Marcus Wallace was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The media jumped on the story. News outlets ran headlines like, "Deputy kills girlfriend, love turns lethal, and abuse behind the badge." It wasn't just a crime, it was betrayal. The kind of betrayal that cuts deeper than any bullet. The trial was heartbreaking. Friends testified about Lan's constant fear. Her professors read out emails where she hinted at wanting to transfer out of town. Her mother broke down while reading a letter Lan had written but never sent. "If I die, know that I tried to survive. I fought, but he didn't let me go." The defense tried to twist the narrative. They suggested that maybe someone else had motive. Maybe Lan had a jealous ex. Maybe she had mental health issues, but none of it stuck. The evidence was stacked too high. The texts, the journal, the bullet, the fact that Marcus had a key, and above all, Lan's own warning, her final voice, her own prophecy. Marcus Wallace was found guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He showed no emotion as the verdict was read. No tears, no remorse. Lan's family, though relieved, were shattered. Justice had been served, but it had come too late. It hadn't saved her. It hadn't prevented the scream that went unheard. Lan Brady's story isn't just a domestic violence case. It's a reminder of how power can shield abusers and how victims often scream into systems that choose to stay deaf. It forces us to ask difficult questions. What happens when your abuser wears a badge? Who do you call when the danger is the one meant to protect? This case sent shockwaves through Georgia and beyond. Police departments across the country were forced to re-examine how they handled domestic violence accusations involving their own officers. Policies were tightened, internal affairs departments were given more independence, but no policy change could bring Lan back. To this day, Lan Brady's name echoes through advocacy groups and domestic violence reform discussions. Her case is taught in seminars, cited in reports, and remembered by every woman who has ever whispered, "I'm scared of him," only to be told, "It'll be fine." It wasn't fine. She tried to get away. She asked for help. She left behind every possible sign, but she wasn't heard. Now the world hears her, and you've heard her too. This is Criminal Files. If Lan's story moved you, don't just scroll. Speak, act, share. Because justice delayed doesn't have to be justice denied. And sometimes the most dangerous person in your life isn't hiding in the shadows. He's the one who holds the key to your door. If you thought this case was shocking, imagine what's coming next. Hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Because the truth is darker than fiction.